Hello, welcome back to Road of Trials. I'm showing you this bit again, partly because YouTube made it too dark to see in the last episode, but also because I'm about to perform a reading of this entire tutorial stage, and so it felt right to include this scene in that. This place is called the Undead Asylum, and our undead character has been imprisoned here for an unspecified amount of time. This is important to understanding what our character is experiencing. We as players will be out of here in about 10 minutes, but this is the life Hamlet the cleric knows. It's not quite the idyllic hometown of your usual RPG, but we're told that it is a typical existence for many of our ilk. The narrator even tells us that to wait here indefinitely for the end of the world is our fate. Which is funny, because we know it's not our fate, or else this wouldn't be much of a video game. But for Hamlet, what happens here to permit his escape must be a pretty stunning turn of events. It's no less than his opportunity to change his destiny. And it's such a small thing, a mere chance encounter, that enables it. And that is exactly what Campbell would expect from the appearance of this guy, the herald of the call to adventure. By this game's standards, this Asylum stage really packs in the direct storytelling, and it all corresponds to Campbell's Departure stage, the first of 3 stages in his monomyth, the structure he believed shared in common across all myths, across all cultures, across all time. So in this episode, we'll be able to identify all 5 subsections of the Departure stage as Campbell identified them: the call to adventure, refusal of the call, the crossing of the first threshold, supernatural aid, and the belly of the whale. So last time I identified the asylum itself as the belly of the whale. This is kind of a non-literal interpretation. Campbell described it literally. Think of, like, Pinocchio, for example. But it's important to understand that Campbell was describing archetypes, the same ones that are supposed to appear in your dreams. And so it's par for the course for their presence in a myth to be symbolic in nature. Even if you've never dreamt of being eaten by a whale, Campbell would argue that the theme must have appeared in some dream of yours implicitly, taking on a form more familiar to your unconscious. The symbolic resonance of these archetypes is their most important component, not the direct images themselves. So what does the belly symbolize? Well, to give you an idea, one alternate form Campbell suggests for it is a coffin. It's a place where the hero relinquishes his earthliness. He may appear to have died, and he's reborn as the universal, archetypal hero. The hero has the power to save because his attachment to his ego has been annihilated, and therefore he has nothing to fear. You can see that the literal reality of this setting has kind of been reverse engineered from this symbol. The passage of the threshold, Campbell writes, is a form of self-annihilation. Passage through thresholds, like that one just then, is a central part of the Asylum's level design. So, right on cue, here's someone to help us out with the whole self-annihilation thing. This guy plays the role of the Threshold Guardian. We are not quite ready to face him, so we'll do what the messages on the ground tell us and get out of here. Right now these messages are playing the role of simple tutorial text, but they're actually kinda diegetic. Later on the game makes available an item which allows us to write our own messages, viewable by other players. Soon you will see that this is infinitely meaningful. The first threshold represents the passage beyond the world familiar to the hero, and its guardian represents the forces which work to hold him there and keep him from beginning his adventure. That sounds pretty simple, but remember that these archetypes are representative of our interior worlds. Throwing a boss at the player right away isn't just the game being mean, although it is pretty mean. It's reflective of the notion that the first steps of a journey are often the hardest. Think of how in Lord of the Rings, the hobbits are hesitant to step too far from their home, right? So, in order to defeat the Threshold Guardian, we're going to have to dig a little deeper into ourselves. A task which is here represented by figuring out how to play this game. That means learning the basics, like equipping a shield and which button to press to block, but It also means becoming acquainted with the game's basic patterns, which will extrapolate outward into the entire game world once we manage to leave here. Take a look at this level's structure. There are two main chambers, the one we can overlook from here, representing the safety of the bonfire, and through that door is the other, representing the danger of the boss. In order to defeat the boss, we first have to encounter it, then take a step outside of that dichotomy and into these peripheral hallways, whose miniature thresholds let us navigate around both the safe area and the dangerous one until we find ourselves ready to face the danger and finally cross over in pilgrimage to the realm of power. We now have our weapon, and we could challenge the boss again right now, but the layout has already made it clear that we still have more to find here. Higher planes to ascend to. God damn it. That boulder bashed the wall back here open, allowing us to speak with Oscar, the knight we saw earlier. He indicates pleasant surprise that we're not hollow, or a mindless zombie, confirming that when he dropped us the key, it wasn't for some grander purpose. Releasing us must have been something of an afterthought for him. He's undead too, so dying wouldn't normally be such a problem for him. But he's about to lose his grip and become hollow himself, so he wants to know if we can inherit his quests and shoulder his burden. It's interesting that we're given the option to decline. The game would carry on even if we do, of course, but just being able to say no makes us feel more involved in saying yes. This is the culmination of our call to adventure, so it's only natural that we could choose to refuse the call as well. Those are two of the Campbellian departure archetypes which go hand in hand, the call to adventure and the temptation to refuse it. Campbell notes that the figure of the Herald of the Call carries an irresistible fascination, so I think it's interesting to note that there is another of those metatextual callbacks to Demon Souls here. Oscar looks very similar to the figure on the Japanese cover for that game. This lends a certain gravity to Oscar, and a certain sense of destiny to what we're inheriting from him. Taking on his quest feels familiar, like a cosmic cycle has come around again. Those who played demons will also have recognized that the Asylum Demon, who's putting us through all this trouble, is himself reminiscent of the Vanguard, Demon Souls tutorial boss. The Vanguard came at the end rather than the beginning of that tutorial, but if he killed you, that was it. You wouldn't have another chance to fight him, and your death facilitated your passage through that game's version of the Threshold. You can see how there's some similar ideas at play there. Both games feature a first boss who makes a statement that what you're about to experience is going to be hard, that you need to commit to putting yourself through it. Of course, the sight of a familiar dying hero and a familiar scary demon does some work to further a particular monomythic feeling that we're reliving an old adventure, but in both games, the Threshold Guardian also helps to establish something that resonates with Campbell's sense of mythology. It's not supposed to be escapist. The hero in a myth isn't having a jolly time. He's struggling against immense powers. But then again, those powers are there precisely for him to struggle against. Like the actors in a dream, they would serve no purpose if not to guide the hero through his inner journey. Campbell compares the Threshold Guardian to threatening statues, guarding the entrances of temples. Gargoyles, lions, warriors with drawn swords. They symbolize that entering a temple is akin to crossing the threshold. The gargoyles, quote, ward away those incapable of encountering the higher silence within. The mere fact that anyone can physically walk past the temple guardians does not invalidate their significance, for if the intruder is incapable of encompassing the sanctuary, he has effectually remained without. I don't want to talk too much about this game's difficulty in this series. It's a bit of a tired old subject. Suffice it to say, it can be rather obscurantist, but once you know what you're doing, it's not as hard as a God Hand or a Dance Dance Revolution. I will discuss it to the extent that it's relevant to the thematic content. But first, look at this background. It's pretty good. The distant mountains are obviously unreachable. Not only does the terrain look impassable, but on close inspection, it's a little two-dimensional. That nearby small outcropping of land is the furthest we could reach, and in fact, it's what the demon is guarding. It looks rather insignificant, a dead end, but Its silhouette is similar to that of the mountains. That humble little slope represents the summit of our entire current existence, and only by reaching its peak can we transform ourselves and our world. To do so, we have no choice but to traverse the threshold and to battle the Guardian. He looks pretty intimidating down there, but as long as we remain above his domain, we should be safe to... oh god. The Asylum Demon can waste you pretty handily if you don't know how to fight him. I'd say that this is pretty much what characterizes Dark Souls' difficulty. There may be games that force faster reactions or deeper strategies out of you, but Dark Souls does demand that you take heed of your actions. It doesn't want you walking past the gargoyles without even noticing them. If we just try to pound the attack button and scrape through, we'll be slaughtered. Wow, I realize after bringing up this analogy to Campbell's gargoyles that this door to the boss is literally guarded by a pair. That's spooky. But anyway, the thing is, the path of the hero is not supposed to be about being the brawniest or the most skilled or even the smartest. All those things might be tested along the road of trials to come, but the true path of the hero is the path of culminating insight. We transcend our existence not by beating it into submission or answering its riddles one by one, but by wholly understanding it. The hero's world during the departure stage represents his familiar mental state, and without truly coming to terms with the shape of that labyrinth, he'll never break free. It will always find him again, draw him back in through some unsuspected passageway. Know thyself, know your true capabilities, and most of the work is already done. Yes! You see, that platform may have seemed like a trap, but it was really there for us, just like the Guardian was there for us. Everything has its lesson to teach. In this case, the lessons were that you can perform a leaping attack and a plunging attack at the same time, and that you should only swing your mace when doing so won't get you hit by a giant hammer. But more broadly, the lesson is that the threshold is surmountable. A new player might have to try that boss several times, but they'll learn it. I've watched people do it who don't believe themselves to be much good at video games. Dark Souls is difficult in that it forces you to teach yourself its lessons, and because it makes sure you've actually learned them. So that's why, to those with whom it resonates at least, this game seems so meaningful. Its clear reflection of these Campbellian ideas means that playing it can feel like a process of inner growth. To some, this will mean nothing, but to others, it can be almost therapeutic. We're ready to ascend to our destiny, but first, here's the last of those tutorial messages. It tells us to go straight ahead, but if we do that, we'll miss this handy-dandy soul item over here to the left. The message is misleading us. It's lying. Again, soon, you'll see that this is infinitely meaningful. This slope is lined with graves, suggesting we may not be the first to attempt this journey. I didn't get a chance to mention it earlier, but here's the quest Oscar gave us. Make pilgrimage from the Undead Asylum to the Land of Ancient Lords, ring something called the Bell of Awakening, and learn the fate of the undead. He also said something about all undead being chosen, but the narrator's about to come back and make the confusing declaration that one day a single undead will be chosen, and this visual of a crow plucking us from the asylum and taking us to the realm of the gods does a lot to make us think we could be that chosen undead. I mean, just look at that. Just look at that. Just look at that. It's a striking visual with a load of possible interpretations. For one, the crow is an appropriate bird to be carrying our dead flesh to its final destination. For those up on this game's lore, the crow also suggests the influence of a certain obscure god. In terms of the general story, it's a great signal that our character is being yanked around by forces beyond his comprehension. It could be a specific reference to a divine crow from Shinto mythology, Yatsugarasu, who guided the first emperor to the land that would become his domain. For us, though, the bird represents what Campbell called supernatural aid. In his words, the benign protecting power of destiny, present and even imminent within or just behind the unfamiliar features of the world. Mother Nature herself supports the mighty task, and the hero seems to ride on the great rhythm of the historical process. We are now in the domain of the ancient lords, and we can see in the distance the territory that our adventure will cover, and over here we can see this almost surreal image of walls spiraling rhizomatically toward the horizon. It's suggestive of the many territories like our Thorland. They must have expanded outward from this central point. But our more immediate concern is this guy, the Crestfallen Soldier, the third direct callback to Demon Souls, and the final representative of the departure stage. He tells us essentially that our quest is hopeless, we're far from the first to attempt it, and that we hardly even understand what we're in for. There are apparently 2 bells we need to ring, not just one, and he doesn't seem to know what's supposed to happen after we ring them either. He's the image of a would-be hero who has refused the call. He's in stasis with nothing to do but sit here and await his disintegration. The gesture here is that we may have completed the first leg of our journey, but our ultimate success is far from assured. Going hollow is implicitly established here as analogous to losing hope. If we ever decide that Dark Souls has us licked, we can imagine that our character has met the same fate as all those who set out on this pilgrimage before him. We have to prove ourselves worthy of the honor of being the chosen undead. In myth, the refusal of the call is often a passing phase for the hero. Sometimes the hero never answers the call, and the myth becomes a sad story about destructive introversion. Our case is different. Our myth threatens to end prematurely. This is when the game begins to wield its relationship with Campbell in an interesting and possibly subversive way. The crow is perched nearby. Take a look at it now. It seems so indifferent to us, maybe primarily concerned with protecting its nest up there. What if it was just a dumb animal all along? What if this quest is just nonsense? The asylum seemed rich with the symbols of a heroic calling, but now all we have is this vague objective to ring a couple of bells. We're left asking just a bunch of questions. What's this pool of water? What's this statue about? What's this open chest doing here? What does anything mean? What does this message say? It says, "Be wary of liar." The last message lied to us, and now this one's telling us to be wary of liars. It's all infinitely meaningful, infinitely meaningful. The ultimate question is this: that Campbellian reading of the first level was, in my opinion, pretty fruitful. In the last episode I spoke about having a conversation with this game, and honestly, wow, I don't think that level has ever communicated to me so clearly before. But is this all bunk? Are these Campbellian tropes just vague enough, just widely applicable enough, that they're bound to turn up wherever you look for them? Or could Dark Souls be doing this on purpose? Or, perish the thought, could Campbell have been right? We'll think about all these questions next time. So, where are you on all this? Do you have any suggestions, maybe, for refining my application of Campbell? Do you have a strong opinion on the usefulness of his work? Do you think this is all just so pretentious? Do you even care about Dark Souls? Let me know. Let's have a conversation. Thanks for all the lovely responses to the first episode. I've received 1 or 2 great thoughts, which I'll address at the appropriate moment. Until next time, have a wonderful day.